And this is the global forecast for the year 2016. I'll do this one in reverse to the way I've done the other people's, all the other signs. Let's get this out of the way first. Big thank you to all of those people who have helped me with your donations over the year. It's people like you that keep me being able to pump astrology out into the world free of charge, and I will continue to do so come what may. Now, let's have a look at the coming year. The big picture over the coming year, Neptune sextile Pluto's coming back. That's lovely. It's been absent for about 10 years. It's coming back for the next 3 or 4 years. You can look at it as transforming the imagination, but also bringing an element of creativity into the regenerative and rebirthing process. Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune in Pisces, it's slowly transforming the way we achieve the idea of world governments. Saturn square Neptune, that's the big aspect of 2016. It's going to slowly and insidiously dissolve a lot of the ways that we believe things to be true. Saturn in Sagittarius is really going to question the nature of belief, whether it is in religion, money, whatever our ethics or morals are. And Neptune squaring Saturn, it's an insidious aspect. It's going to dissolve like sand and water, slowly and gradually, all of our solid beliefs in things, people and environments. Saturn squaring Neptune, it will bring a more social aspect into, not socialist, but social desire, and the plight of those less fortunate than ourselves will become more and stronger. There will be, in this year, floods of refugees, floods of water, but also floods of famine. El Nino is going to strike strong in 2016, and we are going to see an increase in environmental degradation. Be ready, it's coming. However, the more we get into the end of the year, the more we should see some type of solutions and positive change coming. Saturn will be trining Uranus. And indeed, over the first 6 months of the year, it's not too bad because Jupiter's trining Pluto as well. The big picture is that the first half of the year is much harder than the second half of the year. Although the second half of the year is going to see much more specific actions than the first half. The first half is pretty much fudging and reacting to environmental and political and economic situations, whereas the second half of the year is going to be preempting. In the first half of the year, we've got a Mercury retrograde in January, and it's going to end up conjunct Pluto for a week at the end of January. So I do expect the end of January to get quite explosive. Whether that is in political, warfare, financial, or even, and especially geophysical terms, I don't know. But there's going to be some big bangs around the end of January, in the last week of January. There's a particularly strong period around the first week of February where you've got 4 planets all squaring Uranus from Capricorn. You've got the Moon, Mercury, Venus and Pluto all together in Capricorn around the 6th of February, just as the Sun is square Mars. So I'm afraid to say that the last week of January and the first week of February is looking pretty antagonistic and warlike. On the 9th of March, there's a total eclipse of the Sun, or a near total eclipse of the Sun, conjunct Chiron and opposite Jupiter, as well as squaring Saturn. And this is the real biting time of the Saturn-Neptune square. Indeed, the whole of the end of March, all of April and the start of May, we're seeing Jupiter opposite Neptune square Saturn. Hell of a T-square, and this is when I expect the environmental implications of famine, floods of refugees to hit its peak. Once we're into May, there's a few grand trines at the start of May, so we may well start seeing the beginning of a resolution, at least at the economic situations, but more on the economy in the second half of the year. At the start of June, the last couple of days of May and the first week of June, Grand Cross time. Big Grand Cross in the sky around the 5th, 6th of June, around the Gemini new moon. And if there's going to be sort of really dramatic challenges to the planet, similar to September 2011, not the same, but similar, this is when I expect it to be in the first week of June. The full moon on the 20th of June, the day before the solstice, there is another grand cross between Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter and Neptune. And I suggest that by the end of June, we're looking at a kind of shift in public perception, and I do mean globally. As we get more and more into July, the pressure at the daily personal level begins to ease off, but it's still ratcheting up at the larger level. And now we come to the financial stuff. As Jupiter moves away from Pluto, the brakes come off. Mars has stopped going retrograde by this time. Over March, April, May, June, Mars is retrograde, and he's really hitting Saturn, and he's questioning a lot of belief systems. What do people believe in? This is going to become more and more of a theme. But as we get into July, we're seeing a shift. The full moon, particularly on the 18th of August, with Mars conjunct Saturn, is a particularly strong turnaround point where I think a number of old systems are going to finally crumble and collapse because people just aren't going to believe in them anymore. Whether this is economic, political or religious, I don't know. But around that full moon on the 18th of August, there is a sense of crumbling and releasing. And this continues throughout August. Once we're into September and Jupiter moves into Libra, then Jupiter begins to bear down on Pluto. And indeed, once we're into October, the financial real stuff begins. We've got a Mars conjunct Pluto in the middle 10 days of October, and it is going to be squaring Neptune. It is going to be squaring Jupiter. The more we get into the end of the year, the stronger the Jupiter-Pluto square becomes. And I do expect a kind of financial crisis coming up around October that was supposed to be sorted out in 2008, but was actually just shunted on further down the line. The crooks were still running the banks by the end of 2008. We had the opportunity to sort it out and it wasn't taken. So it's going to have to be dealt with in the last 2 or 3 months of 2016 and the first 3 or 4 months of 2017. I do expect at the end of this coming year, in the superheated places, the big cities, the big corporates, I do expect a number of crashes, particularly around house prices at the very high end of the market. So if you're going to sell your house, do it before October. And if you're going to buy a house, wait until 2017, because it will probably be a bit cheaper then. This year's one of those, it's the year of the adjustment. And it's going to come probably in the last third or last quarter of the year. Until then, we've got to deal with ongoing religious warfare and environmental degradation. But I think these will build up to a point where there will have to be fundamental changes in the last 3 months of the year in order to shape a future for us all to live in a much more egalitarian and equal society. The long-term picture looks to the grand conjunction in 2019 and 2020 in Capricorn, and I'm pinning a lot of my hopes on that. But let's get there. Let's get through this coming year first. It's actually not quite as bad as 2015. First half's going to be a bit of a stinker. Second half should be a lot lighter. Have a great year, folks. Thank you for all your support. See you next month. Bye.